Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to season 5 of Career Talk with OG. Just before coming on, we were talking behind the scenes. We can't believe it's been five years. Many incredible guests, and today we're not going to disappoint you because we have my amiga, my friend, Marisol Maloney, who is a super talented. She is the founder of Secret Squirrel Consulting, and she's going to be giving us some tips on creating our resume, and then also some strategies to help us get that interview, because the resume is that first ticket to getting the interview. And before I bring here Marisol on board, Marisol and I have been connected on LinkedIn now for a number of years. She is prolific in sharing a lot of incredible tips for those of you that are transitioning careers. And she does have an emphasis, a focus on those that are in the military and transitioning into civilian life. Marisol herself has successfully transitioned from the Navy into civilian life. And one of the things, Marisol, that I love about you and the work that you do, because it resonates with me, is that you have the bruises and the scars of making that transition. It's not like you just watched some YouTube video or read something and all of a sudden, you became this expert. But I think those lived experiences, there's a lot to be said about that. So, Marisol, thank you for being with us again on Career Talk with OG.
Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. This is fun.
Yeah. So, Marisol, before we get into the tips, again, you've been a guest of Career Talk with OG before. It's been a while, and plus, I think there's some people like me that have short-term memory. So, can you just give us just just putting it out there? It's true. All right. Give everyone a high-level overview of your career transition from military to civilian life.
Sure. I transitioned out of the military in 2019. Before that, I had like 3 different jobs in the military. I enlisted and I was in the aviation community. And then shortly after, I got a scholarship through ROTC for nursing. So I became a nurse. I was a emergency nurse. I did that for 10 years. And then I switched careers again and went into the intelligence community. And I had to fight my way there because I was the first Navy Nurse Corps officer to transition into the intelligence community. Because normally it's the opposite. Normally, intel folks go into medical, but I went the other way around. And then my last tour, I was an intel analyst, but I was also a speech writer for a 4-star general. I'm sorry, 4-star admiral, 3-star general. And shortly after, I decided to take a break from working after I retired from the Navy. Took a year off to essentially find myself because I had so many ideas of what I wanted to do next, but I wanted to really focus on me and decompress because being in the military can be stressful, especially with deployments and all the moving. It can be intense. So I needed a year to just focus on me, and luckily I had a supportive spouse who's also active duty, so he got it, and it was great. But for me, I really did transition alone. I didn't have LinkedIn. I didn't know resume writing was a thing. So I had to figure it out on my own and through Google and yes, YouTube videos. And I try to squeeze 20 years into one page. And I joke that my my first resume was so embarrassing. It was awful. But I learned. I learned through the beatings. I learned how to write a resume that recruiters actually wanted to read. And then I learned how to navigate LinkedIn. I taught myself how to use it. And pretty soon I was getting a bunch of recruiters hitting me up on LinkedIn, offering me, positions, job interviews. And really the last 2 jobs I got was through LinkedIn. And I even got a consulting job as well, consulting scientists on Intel stuff. It was pretty cool. And it's all because of LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn is a tool. So LinkedIn is a tool, but it's because of you knowing how to figure out how to market yourself, promote, and et cetera, and so forth. And that's what I want to talk about today. Which, by the way, side note, let me pause because I forgot to mention something. Marisol, if you do have your LinkedIn or your the mobile app on your phone, if you wouldn't mind actually going to your notifications and resharing um, the alert that you probably see that we're on, and that way people in your network are able to also view this our talk here today.
All
But
right. Hold on. Let me grab my phone here.
yes, yes. And by the way, we're not professionally here, okay, Marisol. We're just OG with Marisol here, okay?
I don't see the alert.
You don't
I
see
have
the
not
alert?
been I have not been alerted.
What? Okay, let me let me see something here. 1 second, folks, because we want to make sure we get more people. Um, Here we go. Let me send this to you. Oops. Uh, okay, check your message because I just sent it to you in the message. Yeah. What's up, Travis? All right. So thank you, Travis, for joining us. Okay, I just sent it to via the LinkedIn message, and I think if you open it, you should be able to like share it as I think as a like as a post or something like that.
Okay, just shared it.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you, man. So, okay, everyone, we are back. We had a sorry, that was my bad. I forgot to mention in the beginning. But Marisol, okay, so you transitioned, you were in the military. You took on some roles where you were like the first or one of the first, in doing that. You leave the military and you're trying to figure things out. Um, let's start off first with what are some common challenges, hurdles, or maybe even mistakes that people make when they're transitioning careers that just kind of stand out in your mind? Maybe the top three things.
Just figure out what they want to do next. They feel that they have to do the same thing they did before. Even if they're unhappy doing it, they feel like, well, that's all I know. And that's just, it's rough because then it makes it that much harder. You're now trying to get another job that you don't want to do. And that's what I had to like, reflect on, like, do I really want to go back to nursing? What do I want to do? And the answer was like, no, I don't want to do that. I mean, could I do the job today? Yes, I could, but it's not. I lost the passion for that a long time ago, so I don't know that I'd be happy in it. And then just not transferring some of the skills over to the new career path. Just
Hmm.
not figure out how to narrow down what you bring to the table.
Yes, yes. So then, when it comes to a resume, what, what's some advice? Like, where do you start? Because I mean, there's a lot of us out there that have been in doing the work that we're doing. I mean, obviously, it depends on the industry. Some industries are more volatile than others, but you've been doing the work that you've been doing or working at the company for X number of years. You haven't put together a resume. I mean, shoot, then just 2 years ago, no one ever heard of AI, and all of a sudden now AI is right. So all these changes. What are some things that you recommend someone to start off with when they're putting together their resume?
Again, review, make a list of, like, write it everything down. Make a list of the skills that you have, hard skills, not just the soft ones, because people focus too much on their soft skills, like leadership and management, communication.
Mm,
But if you're trying to go into IT, for example, they want hard skills. So there's a lot of people that want to transfer into IT or cybersecurity, but they don't have even the training or the certification. So they have to start essentially from the bottom. And you have to be okay with that if you're doing a major career transition, that you may take a pay cut or you may get an increase in pay. It depends on the industry. And again, it goes back to your skills. To figure out what skills you have that you want to, do next, figure out what industry, maybe you want to stay in the same industry or go to a different one, and then start researching some of those job descriptions, review them, look at the requirements. It tells you right there what they're looking for. Like, they put it in front of you. And that's what people like. I think that's a separate skill. Like, you have to learn how to read job descriptions and really pay attention to what they're looking for. And I think there's a lot of noise out there on social media where you have these influencers telling people, oh, those are just suggestions. It's just a wish list. No, some of those are hard, like requirements that companies are looking
Yes.
for, and they're requirements for a reason. And some companies don't have time to train you. They want you to come ready to go, especially for the technical roles. Or like for me, I recruit for Intel roles. So they're not going to teach you how to be an Intel analyst. That requires time and training. You need to know how to safeguard classified data. That's not something you're going to learn overnight. So you have to come ready to go. So read the job descriptions and figure out what skills you need to have, and just go line by line saying, okay, I have that. I have that. Okay, I have some of these soft skills, but yes, I'm lacking this hard skill. I'm lacking this certification. If you want to be a project manager, some of the jobs require you to have a PMP certification. And if you don't have it, you may not get the role unless it says PMP preferred. Then that means you still have a shot if you meet the other requirements. But if someone else comes along and they have that PMP, they might look at that person's resume first. Doesn't mean they'll get the job. I mean, they might bomb the interview and you might crush it. So it just depends. But just know that if you meet the must-haves and the preferred, that's just a bonus. That's just icing on the cake.
Mm, mm. You said something that's important about learning how to read job descriptions, because that in itself is a skill. And I agree with you 100%. One of the challenges that I encountered back when I was leading the Chamber of Commerce, and we were looking, to hire certain positions, is that today with technology, it's so easy. Like for example, just to hit click and submit either a resume or your LinkedIn profile, and I think there's pluses and minuses to that. The negative to that is that from an employer standpoint, or like in your case as a recruiter, you get a lot of resumes that, quite frankly, are not qualified. Like you said, they didn't meet the job description and so forth. So what? Okay, so you mentioned you're talking about meeting the like the hard skills. What about though, like, because there's the other question that comes in. Okay, I meet the hard skill. If they say that I need to have X number or whatever, technical knowledge and so forth, I have it. But then there's also, I think, sometimes where people question how good they are in that particular skill. How, like, how in a resume, or what advice would you give someone if they're questioning their own ability or knowledge, or how good they are in that particular skill or skills that they're looking for, like, or how do you quantify that in your knowledge in a resume?
It's always good to use metrics. Everybody has metrics. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a teacher, nurse, everybody has metrics. And people always say, I don't know, I can't quantify it. I just answer phones all day. I'm like, okay, so then I challenge it. How many phone calls do you answer a day? How many customers have you helped? Did that help improve customer satisfaction by 20%, 30%, 100%? And then they start thinking, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I guess I have gotten, good reviews
Yes.
because I've helped so many people." So quantify everything that you can. Some things you just can't, and that's fine, but the the more metrics you have, the better. It shows the person reading your resume, "Oh, wow, they've done some stuff." Especially if let's go with customer service. Okay, wow, they've helped 3,000 customers per month, and okay, let's talk to them. I want to know more about their customer service skills versus just saying, "I answered phones." You can quantify that, how many
Yeah.
customers you've helped.
Yes. True. True. So, folks, remember that. Make note. Quantifying. There are ways to quantify the work that you are doing, and that is very, very important. Uh, Now, Manito, what about in terms of resume format? I've heard, some folks say, "Oh, go with a lead with your skills." Others, the more common, format, the chronological, right? Kind of like the way LinkedIn is set up, okay, chronological. Others is kind of like a hybrid, okay. Um, any thoughts in terms of what type of format, resume formats you recommend?
Chronological is the best, in my opinion. Even if, you've had a break. Like, for example, if I wanted to go back to nursing, I will probably have like a careers highlight section in the beginning, in the first half of my resume. So it varies. It really depends on each person's background. So it's
Hmm.
not one size fits all. So the resume I use may not be a good fit for you. So you have to tailor it to your experience, your industry, and then make it match what they're looking for. So it's really about the content in your resume. People worry too much about making it look pretty. You have people posting Canva resumes. I'm here to tell you they're stupid. Like nobody cares about the color. It a simple black and white. I mean, I'm going to show you one here shortly. I'm going to have Angelica pull it up in a minute, but mine are ugly. They're just black and white. But it's the content that gets people the job interviews. Yeah, it's
Yes.
boring. I mean, they're boring because I also understand how the ATS works. So I'm going to explain that briefly. The ATS is just a system that stores applications, um, your resume, and the recruiter can email candidates as well, send you a job offer letter through that. We take notes when we talk to candidates. That's a way to, take notes like, oh yes, they meet the requirements, or they didn't meet the requirements because of this, but may be an ideal candidate for this other position that we have. So we take notes on there all the time. So that's how the ATS works. So people think that the ATS is just this bot that just eats your resume and recruiters never see it. That's false. I know there's a lot of noise about uh, that they automatically reject it for no reason. No, there's a reason. So a human, usually the recruiter or whoever, sets it so that it has what's called knockout questions. So there's some must have. So like for example, I recruit for Intel analysts. So they have to have a top secret clearance. So one of the first questions is, do you have a top secret clearance? And if you say no, you're automatically rejected because there's no sense in moving forward. That's a must have. You don't have it, so you're
True.
done.
True.
Um, I set those off. I turned them off because I would have some that would have a secret clearance. And so I wanted to keep those so I could later on reach out to them for roles that required a secret clearance. So there's different ways to program the ATS, and then some ATSs do have a grading system, but they're not very accurate. So like mine had it ABC, but it was giving people A's just because they use, for example, the word Intel analyst several times in a resume, and so the ATS is like,
Mm,
oh, it's matching, the job description. But then I would read the resume because a human still has to read that resume, and I would reject them because they didn't meet the requirements. And then the people that were C's met the requirements. I'm like, this is hot garbage. So I turned off that parameter as well. So I really
mm,
manually review everything and I manually grade everything and I put notes in there on why I rejected someone in case we get audited. So people can't say, oh, Marisol discriminated against me. She doesn't like me. It's like, no, this is the reason why you were rejected. You did not meet
sure.
these three requirements, which were must haves. So we take notes on that. So that's how that works. And sometimes it's not, that's why it's not your resume that gets you rejected sometimes. So you may have this beautifully written resume that maybe you paid thousands of dollars for. I don't know, or maybe it was free. But sometimes the application is how you answer those questions. And sometimes people don't fill out the application. And I made this mistake. So I'm going to share it. When I first started, job searching as a civilian, I applied online and it tells you upload your resume, so I did that, and then it would say, type in your your work history, and I'm like, what the heck, that's what my resume's for. So I would say, see attached resume. Man, I got rejected so quick. And I know a lot of people are doing, because it is frustrating, because you're like, because some ATSs can't parse the information very well. And that's why I say keep the information, keep your resume simple. Make it easy because AI is still dumb. So make it easy for the applicant tracking system to grab that information from your resume and parse it on there. And I know people ask, is it better to use a Word document or PDF? It depends. It depends on read the application. What does it say? Does it say please submit in Word format or PDF or any format? So like the ATS I use, it's called Clear Company. It could take it either way. So, I mean, it could be a picture of your face and I can still see it. That it'll come through. It won't parse anything on the application, but it'll come through the way you send it. So that's how my ATS works. So I can't speak for all the other ATSs, but it's a similar concept. So like my ATS shows me the resume first and then the application. I've talked to other recruiters where the programs they use, it shows them the application first and then the resume. But at the end of the day, it is a human being that's reading your application. So if you're trying to game the system and copy and paste, the job description and hide it in white font on your resume, it's silly. And some recruiters can, do like a shift something button and it'll highlight what you did. So then you'll get blacklisted. So don't do that. It's dumb. Just, be qualified. You want to beat the system, be qualified, and then learn how to network, learn how to communicate with recruiters. I mean, I've had a lot of crappy resumes I've seen that I still called them because the format didn't matter, but I saw something in their resume. I'm like, oh, I think they might be able to do this job, and so I will call them. And like 99% of the time, yeah, they're pretty good to go. So sometimes your format, even if it's off, it looks crazy. As long as it's all about the content, as long as you can show that you can do the job, the format doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
But yeah,
That
sometimes
is,
it's the application, it's how you apply.
yeah. I thank you for sharing all this because, like you, I'm also very active on LinkedIn, and I do see a lot of resume tips, advice, and so forth about the look and feel and stuff like that. And you just kept it very simple. And like you said, it's can you do the job, right? And are you conveying that in your resume? No need to, make it all fluffy and beautiful and all that type of stuff. Um, so do you want to right now? Is this a good time? Do you want to share some examples here? I think, like you said, Angelica has some examples of resume. And do you want to
Yeah,
walk
yeah,
us
she
through that?
could pull
Okay.
it up. Yeah, she could pull it up,
All right.
please.
Angelica, by the way, is behind the scenes. She's a Wizard of Oz behind the scenes. There we go. Okay. All right, myself. So it's all yours. Take it away.
So obviously, we'll start with the basics. See, it's not pretty. It's simple, black and white Word document. You want to make sure you have your name, your legal name. And if you go by like, I don't know, your middle name, then put it in parentheses. That's fine, but put your legal name on there. City and state, obviously. It's for some people it's not so obvious. So that people need to know where you're applying from. So if say you are applying for a job in Florida, but you live in California, you need to specify somewhere in your resume that you're willing to relocate. Because some recruiters, if you're not in that area, they will also reject you. Even if you're qualified, they'll still reject you
Mm,
because maybe they need that role filled like within the next 10 days and you probably won't be able to move fast enough. Or maybe you will. But
yes.
sometimes they'll prioritize by the people that are, the closest. So keep that in mind. So if you live far away, just say it on your resume, willing to relocate. So your name, phone number, people, it's very important. A lot of I've seen resumes with no phone number. It's like, okay, how am I supposed to call you? So I'll email them and sometimes, they'll email me back. But it's important to make it easy for the recruiter to find you. So location, phone number, email, and try to keep it as a professional like email, not, pimp daddy 69 at hotmail. um I mean, I'll still give you a call if you're qualified. I'm still gonna call you, but just be mindful that some people may get offended. Not everybody has a sense of humor like the secret squirrel. Okay, just letting you know. So keep it professional, and also just create a separate email for job searching. It just makes it that much easier. So when you get spam or you get,
Yes.
you know, you'll know where it's coming from. So you'll know this is coming from, your a potential employer. So that's where you'll get your rejection emails, offer letter. So create a separate email that's just for job searching. And then LinkedIn if you feel comfortable. Now, you need to learn how to use LinkedIn for real. Like learn how to optimize it. And when you first put in your LinkedIn link, it has like a bunch of numbers after your name. So there's a way
Yeah.
to go to the edit section and then delete all those numbers and just make it more like just succinct and it's tailored to your information. So try to play
Yes.
around with LinkedIn. And next is the job title. So it's it's always write the title of the job you're seeking next. So make it clear because sometimes I'll have people that say I'm looking for an Intel job, but like no, I can't tell that they're Intel analysts because it just it's crazy the way they write their
Mhm.
resume. So just make it easier, and instead of saying summary section, some people would just write summary section, but it's kind of silly because I know it's your summary section. It's like writing business card on a business card or writing resume on your resume. Like we know. So instead of just writing summary section, just write the job title for the role you're seeking. And then I like to have top skills up front, especially for like the technical roles, because there are a lot of technical recruiters that are moving quickly looking at those skills, especially for like IT, cybersecurity, software engineer. They're looking at those skills right away. And then technical skills if you have them. So this is the basic format that I start with. Summary section, top skills, technical skills, professional experience, and then I leave the education at the end. I know people have questions about that. Should I have it at the beginning, the end? New grads, it's fine, but a lot of people I work with are mid-level to senior level. So they're,
Got it.
they've been doing this for a while. So we put their stuff at the bottom. Um, Especially for like military, they've been doing a lot. A lot of the people I get have been doing 10, 20 plus years of a certain job. So we put their stuff at the bottom and start with the experience section. Now, this is just a basic template. Okay. You want to start with this, but obviously I tailor it to everybody's individual needs. So if you have a volunteer section where, you did some stuff that is relevant to the job you're seeking next, because sometimes people put a volunteer section and it doesn't help you. It'll say something like, "Oh, head of the Girl Scouts or something." It's like, okay, what did you do with the
Yeah.
Girl Scouts? Like,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. And if you're trying to apply to an IT role, doesn't really matter. So just take that out. It's not relevant. Now, if you were doing sales, going into sales, and you sold all these cookies and raised like thousands of dollars, and you won an award for being, the best seller of cookies, okay, put it on there. It makes sense. Otherwise, it's not necessary. Um, if you have a website or a portfolio, put that on there. So again, you can change how you work the resume, but this is just a basic format I'm showing you. As you can see, again, it's not pretty. It's very basic. It makes it easier to parse the information onto the ATS. Now, if you want to make it all pretty and foo-foo, you can do that. And I think those are good for like in-person job fairs. If you're handing someone the resume, maybe yes, you want to be a little bit more memorable, that's fine. You can spruce it up. But when applying online, just keep it simple. Just a basic Word document works. As far as skills, I like to do 9 to 12 skills, especially if a hard skills you want to list and it's in the job description. Make sure you list those. So that's
Mhm.
that's pretty much it. It's really straightforward. If you can scroll down, I'm just showing what it's. I'm going to show you what it looks like filled out. So that's what it
Oh
looks like
yeah.
once you fill in the information.
Got
So
it.
this is a made up resume. Um, Software engineer, put their technical skills on there, and then if they have a portfolio, put it on there. If they did any recent projects that are relevant, put it on there. So you want to do a lot of the more relevant and recent stuff up top. So you want to make sure that the first page has all of your valuable information. Oftentimes people make the mistake of putting their technical skills on the second or third page. Some people make them too long. And you got to remember,
Mm.
recruiters get hundreds of resumes and applications for just one job requisition, and they may be managing 10, they may be managing 30 or 40. So it's important for you to make it easy for the recruiter to read and understand what it is that you're trying to tell them about your background. So keep it short if you can, no more than 2 to 3 pages. I know some people say you got to keep it to 1 page. If you have 2 pages of good content or even three, do it. I read a 16-page resume once, but it was a federal
Woo!
resume and they submitted it. So that's another thing. Know the difference between a corporate resume and a federal resume. Federal resumes can be like 20, 30, 40 pages long. Don't submit
True.
those for a corporate job. Make sure to keep it no more than 2 to 3 pages. If you're a new grad, 1 page is fine. Or if you're transitioning to a new career field and you don't have a lot of experience, 1 page is fine. But for a lot of the service members that I work with, I usually have 2 pages for them because they have so much
Mhm.
valuable information that they can translate. They just don't know how to translate it, and also teach them how to civilianize the language and not use military titles. Like we use the civilian equivalent. So that's another thing. Just try. It takes time to do all that, and yeah, people get nervous when I put 20 years of experience into 2 pages. They're like, oh, they get all nervous. But they're quick snapshots. The resume is not designed to get you the job. It's designed to get you the ticket to the dance. The dance being the
Mhm.
job interview. Once you get to the job interview, that's where you go, you dance your butt off and you show them why you are the one. Okay. So remember, it's the whole package. It's how you interview, how well you wrote your resume, how well you network, how you apply online, and your social media presence too. That can also affect some people. If you're a negative Nelly and you're always bashing recruiters, that looks poorly on you. I see people all the time. There's this one guy, he was putting all these companies on blast. He made a list of all the companies who had rejected him. Gee, I wonder why you're still unemployed. And a lot of recruiters would chime in and give him advice like, hey, maybe clean up your resume, maybe do this. Some people offer him, their paid resume service. Some people offer him free. And he's like, no, I don't want to pay for anything. And I don't want to do the free services because they're not good. Just talking out his butt. He just looked like an idiot. But his post got a lot of likes because, he was bashing recruiters, and that's in vogue right now, apparently. So
Yeah,
be mindful. So if you have a lot of like bad stuff on social media, I recommend going back and deleting it, just scrubbing it down and start new.
start
Because
fresh.
yeah, because hiring managers and recruiters are seeing what you're posting.
Yes, yes. So, um, thank you, Marisol. And I want to go back to this format. So, everyone, this is again a very simple format of a resume. It's, I would say, in some cases, counterintuitive to what other recruiters or other advice that's out there. But remember, what Marisol is talking about here is that the goal is to get that interview, not to make it all fancy and all that type of stuff. If the goal is to get that interview, and Marisol here is sharing with us that this is the format that she uses, guess what? And she has the stats to prove, okay, how successful she is in getting people interviews. So keep that in mind. Sometimes we need to kind of set aside some of this good advice, that we get, but maybe it's not really producing the results, okay? And then the other thing too, like you talked about is translating skills from a past job or industry, like for example, say military, when you were in the military to civilian life. Is there any recommendation or any advice on how someone can do that? I mean, what do they do? Just Google it. It's Chat GPT it and ask. What recommendations do you have to help someone translate something into civilian or whatever?
Yeah, it starts with a self-reflection. Like for example, I did a lot of triaging as a nurse. So I had to learn to prioritize stuff. So that's a skill that I use today. I know how to triage certain projects. In the intelligence community, I had to do a lot of writing, a lot of research, and that helps me today, as a recruiter, as a resume writer, leadership and management. I've led large teams. I had, I think the largest I had of direct reports was like 75 people. I
Mm,
manage large military exercises that involve 3,000 troops. So I have organizational skills, project management skills. So a lot of those skills translate over, but I think it's a lot of people have a hard time putting a word to it, or like change management. People are like, what is that? And a lot of us in the military, especially those that go up higher in rank, like the E7s and above, the O6s, we've all done change management at some point, especially if they've taken command and led a lot of people. They've done those kinds of things, but it's just learning that terminology and then the industry language. So just get familiar with that stuff. But again, it goes back to what skills do I really have? And it helps to look at the job descriptions because it tells you what skills they're looking for. And you can say, like, oh, yeah, I know how to prioritize, I know how to communicate with others. And then you just prove it. You
mhm,
pick stuff
mhm.
from previous jobs that can speak to that specific skill they're looking for. And if you don't
Got
have the
it.
skills, you have to have that assessment too. Like, okay, I don't meet any of these requirements. I think I need to go back to school if you have the
Sure.
time and if you can afford it. So
Yes,
there's
yes,
that
yes.
too. So some
Hmm.
like again, some places are looking for hard skills, technical skills, and if you don't have them, then you need to go back to school or try to do an internship if you can, or
Yes.
volunteer. You can also
Hmm.
volunteer, and some organizations do accept volunteer time. You know, as part of like experience. But you got to be careful with that because some job description, again, it goes back to reading the job description. It'll say volunteer experience will not be considered, only paid
Okay.
experience. So you have to pay attention. Like I'm telling you, the standard operating procedure is that job description. It tells you what you need. It tells you how
Sure.
to apply. Like literally, it tells you this is the requirements that you need to apply to this role. And if you're applying to government roles, like I do a lot of defense contracting, recruiting, The government client wants 100% of the requirements. And sometimes it
Mm,
could be just 3 hard requirements. Like for me, it's, must have a top secret clearance, must have a degree, must have 10 years experience. If you're missing any one of those 3, you're going to get rejected. And there's some organizations that have like 10 requirements, 15 requirements. And sometimes they might be lenient. Like say they want someone with 10 years experience and you only have 8, but you meet all of the other requirements, they may still give you a shot.
sure, sure.
But you also have to be
Got it.
realistic. Like, do you meet at least 80% of the requirements? And if you don't, it's okay because your resume, your application will stay in the ATS. And a lot of recruiters, the first place they'll look, if they have another opening, the first place they check for is previous candidates. So maybe you were an 80% fit for this one role that you applied, but for this new role, you're 100%. So now I'm going to call
Yeah,
you and see if you're
yeah.
interested. So I always tell people, make sure you meet at least 80% of the requirements because you never know. You may get a second or even third callback. I mean, I've called candidates 3, 4 times until eventually I was able to place them.
Got it, got it, got it. I'm going to come back to in a bit to networking with recruiters, but this is some great tips here. And there's a question here. Let me see. Karika, she says the question is, what makes the difference between a good resume and an amazing resume, or does it come down to the interview?
Well, a great resume, it's, well written, no grammatical errors, you spell check, hitting those metrics, hitting all those requirements, and just showing people that you meet the requirements versus a generic one that has a lot of fluffy words like, detail oriented leader who leads people. Like, what? It's boring. Where someone else might come in strong and say, project management professional with top secret clearance experience in leading billion-dollar IT projects within the Department of Defense. So I'm going to read that one
Yeah,
first.
of course,
And
of
then, but
course.
then that person could bomb the interview. Maybe they're too cocky. Maybe they're not sure of themselves. So again, the resume is just a ticket to the dance. It's not going to
Yes.
guarantee you the job offer. It's on you how you present yourself, how organized you are. And I always tell people research the company, read the job description, and when you apply to jobs, I always tell people to save a copy of that job description onto a Word document and the link. Because sometimes when they have enough applicants, they'll remove it. They'll remove the the
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
job as they start interviewing people. So it doesn't mean it's
yeah.
necessarily been closed. It just means that they're probably got enough applicants and now they're starting the interview process. So when they call you for an interview, you're like, what job is this for again? You look bad. It does look bad. And some people were like, oh, well, how do you expect us to remember for applying to hundreds of jobs? Well, are you actually qualified for those hundreds of jobs you're applying to? Because it sounds like you keep getting hundreds of rejections. So I'd say be more strategic, make sure you actually meet the requirements, and apply to maybe like 2 or 3 per week and keep track of those. And then, keep the
Yes.
job description, on file, printed, whatever you remember things. Do that and also keep a version of that resume because I always tell people to tailor the resume to each job description. And tailoring doesn't mean rewriting. Because I have people say, "Oh, I spent 2 hours tailoring my resume." I'm like, "Okay, that's not tailoring." You completely rewrote that resume.
Yes, 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 yes.
Taylor is just tweaking it, like, maybe there's a skill that says, must, I don't know, be a really good Tetris player. I don't know, just making it up. And your current resume doesn't have that, so you would just replace one of the skills, maybe baking, with the Tetris player skill, and then write a bullet about, how well of a Tetris player you are. And that's tailoring it. It's just a very simple change in your resume. But if you stay in the same family, so if you're doing project management, program management, operations sometimes can kind of go squeeze in there, then it shouldn't change much. It should still be the same.
Yes, yes. Got it. So, okay, let's talk about now networking with recruiters because you said something that really caught my attention, and that is that you might not qualify for a particular job, but the recruiter will keep your resume in a database, and then another opportunity comes up, and they'll go to that database, right? So, what are some ways that a candidate can stay top of mind, or build relationships with
Okay.
recruiters.
Yeah, the first thing is say you apply to a job and you get rejected and the recruiter you've already interacted with the recruiter, and they reply back and say sorry, they went with a different candidate. Reply, be gracious, be like, don't be a jerk, be like, I don't want to work for your sucky company anyway. Like, be nice, because those are the more memorable people. If you say, okay, thank you for the opportunity, please keep me in mind for future roles and blah blah, and then follow up with the recruiter maybe monthly. And that's happened where I've had candidates that are like, hey, just following up, see if there's any new intel roles or cybersecurity roles or whatever the roles are that they were looking for. And
Yes.
I'll say, you know what? One just popped up today. And that's actually happened a couple times where people just happened to reach out to me at the right time. And, they made themselves known like, hey, I'm still here. I'm still interested. And, again, they didn't meet the requirements for another role, or maybe another candidate was just further ahead in the interview process. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's not because they're not qualified, it's just someone else was just further along in the interview process. And so then, that's probably why you didn't get the job as well. But oftentimes you just didn't meet the requirements.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes.
when that
Yes.
happens, yes, I will like be like, oh yeah, this role just opened up, and you're interested, and they're like, yep. And since we already have their application on file and their resume on file, it's easier for me to just move it along. Unless there's like a minor adjustment, I may say, hey, can you give me an updated resume showcasing how you meet these two skills? And they usually say, yeah, I'll do it. And I'll usually help them where they help, with the verbiage, and then submit them, and then they get an interview and an offer letter.
Ooh, got it. Got it. Now, um, what about in terms of connecting with the recruiter on LinkedIn or following them? Would you advise them to do that?
Yeah, depending on the industry, don't just follow some random recruiter. Like, I'll get a bunch of people asking me if I have HR positions. And so it's like, no, did you even bother to look at my profile? So in my
Yes.
profile it says what company I work for. And my profile has a link to, get my resume writing service, and also have people say, "How much do you charge?" or "How can I get an appointment with you?" It's like, you couldn't be bothered to look at my profile. Like, before you reach out to any recruiter, read their profile, scroll all the way down, see what they've done, where they've been, posts that they've written. They have a lot of free tips. Some of them write, how to apply to their industry. Like, I'm not going to talk about how to apply to Amazon. I don't work for Amazon, but I can talk to defense contracting jobs.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
follow those recruiters. If you want to work for Microsoft, find a Microsoft recruiter that is active, actually active on LinkedIn. And yeah, you can send them a message, but go to their page first and see, what they have available. And if you meet the requirements or you feel you do, go ahead and apply. That's the fastest way for the recruiter to get your resume. But if you want to be on top of mind of the recruiter, it's okay to message them and say, hey, my name is, Oscar. I just applied for your IT role in Florida. Like, be as specific as you can, because again, you don't know how many requisitions they're managing, maybe throughout the different states. We don't know. So be
Sure.
specific. And I meet these requirements, attaches my resume. Let me know if you have any questions. Just leave it alone, because they may or may not respond right away. It may take them a week, 2 weeks, because recruiters get bombarded with a bunch of messages every day, mostly from unqualified candidates. Like
Mm,
90% of the resumes I get, applications, I reject. They're not qualified, because I get a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people just shooting their shot.
yeah, yeah. So, Mason, we've been talking about some great tips here in terms of keeping the format simple, um, looking at translating your job skills from one job, one industry to the other, staying top of mind, with recruiters, and and this is just all great tips here. We're going to be wrapping it up here shortly, but I wanted to ask you one last question before we do. Is that with regards to social media, obviously LinkedIn is the platform for professionals, but just in general, would you what are your thoughts in terms of social media, as far as like, should you have an account and post your personal things, or should you focus more on, some people say, use it to build your brand and so forth. Should you even include your social media accounts on, like, I mean, how much are companies really focusing on looking at your social media accounts?
Some companies do look at your LinkedIn, and I've heard of other companies that fish around in your Facebook. I don't do all that stuff. I don't have time to look at people's profiles. I'm going off of their resume. Can you do the job?
Yes.
But there are recruiters that will look at your social media presence and all that stuff to make sure you're not a jerk. They see how you interact with others. Or if you're, recruiting, bashing, or whatever you're doing, it's off-putting, and then they just probably won't reach out to you because they're like, you're kind of a risk. We don't know if you're going to be toxic if we give you a call. So I always tell people just be careful what you put on social media. It's forever. Screenshots last forever too, so be careful. But I don't know that too many actually go like to the extreme where they're checking people's Facebook and Instagram, all that stuff. Like I said, I don't look at people's profiles. Now, if they're trying to connect with me, yes, I will read it and I'll decide whether I want to connect with you, depending on if you have like a bunch of buffoonery on there. I'm like, nah, I'm not interested. Or if you're not really that active, I don't feel that you're gonna help out my network because I like connecting with people that will help people in my network because I'm a connector too. So if I say I couldn't help you with this job, I'll connect you with this person. Or, as a resume writer, someone saying, oh, I'm looking for a cybersecurity job. Oh, I know a recruiter who's recruiting in cyber right now. Let's see if we can do an introduction. And so I like to connect with people who are actually active, are for the most part positive. Or if they're snarky, I'm snarky myself, so I appreciate snark and humor. As long as people aren't mean or trolling all the time, I just that's the first thing I do is look at their LinkedIn profile if they're gonna connect with
Uh,
me. Or a
sure,
troll. If
sure.
someone trolls me when I try to give tips all the time, some people get upset because, the shoe fits. When I tell them, don't make these mistakes, do this instead, people focus on the don't do, instead of focusing on the, hey, do this before. I'm speaking from experience. I made some of these mistakes myself. So sometimes I'm poking fun of myself, my own transition mistakes. But some people get really offended and get their feelings hurt. And the first thing I do when they troll me is look at their profile. I'm like, oh, no, I can see why you're having a hard time finding the job. You're negative. Your LinkedIn profile sucks. You look angry in your profile picture. It's, you know what? I'm not even gonna. I just ignore them now. I don't even engage them.
Yeah.
I just let them
Yes.
go
Yeah.
because I know how LinkedIn works. So if I don't engage their comments, the comments just gonna die. It's not gonna go anywhere. And
Yes. Yes.
trolls
Yes.
want
Yes.
attention and they want to fight because the shoe fits. The feelings have been hurt. So they did those things I told them not to do.
Oh my gosh. All right, we're gonna wrap it up here, everybody. So, one final tips or advice or just comment for folks that are putting together their resume and job searching. Any final advice or any tips or parting words?
Yeah, the first thing before you start writing, again, think about what you want to do next. Do you want to stay doing the same job? Do you want to pivot? What do you want to do? What industry? And think about your salary. What is it that you want to get paid, and are you worth that much? I have a lot of military service members that are getting on. They say, I want to get paid $150 and I want to be a director. Okay. What makes you think you're worth 150,000? And a director in what industry? And I get crickets. It's like saying, I
Yeah.
want to be a doctor. Okay. What kind of doctor do you want to be? You have to know
Yes.
these things. So again, it starts with that self-reflection and doing your own research. And I want to be an astronaut. Okay. Well, research. What does it entail to get there? Don't just apply, with all the list of responsibilities that you did in your previous jobs. Like, what do you need to get there? And that's what a lot of people fail to do. They make the mistake of listing previous responsibilities with no metrics instead of listing the skills that the job requires. So people will write, whatever fluffy stuff they want to put because they like the way it sounds. But again, you're not writing the resume for yourself. You're writing it for the hiring manager. So tell the hiring manager your story of why you should be picked for that role.
Got it. So, well, everyone, there you have it. Some excellent tips from Marisol. Reach out to her, either follow her or connect with her on LinkedIn. As I said in the beginning, she provides a lot of valuable, just overall general job search tips. And as I said in the beginning, it comes from much lived experiences here. So, Marisol, thank you. Thank you for being on Career Talk with OG. Thank you for sharing so many great tips here for folks, and really, really appreciate it. Maybe we'll have you next year, season 6. We'll talk about some other strategy.
We'll talk
But
about how to
thank you, Marisol.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. But Marisol, thank you very much
Thanks for
for
having
being a
me.
guest. Yes, thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of the week. Bye bye, everyone. Stay on, Marisol.